Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Maria Salinas. I am the president and CEO of the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. I am so happy to be here and to have Governor Newsom, who is here today, who's got a really exciting announcement for all of us. I know that we've just had an economic forecast here, and I want to thank our partner, Stephen Chung, the president and CEO of the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation, who presented just an amazing program, and thank you, Governor, for being a part of that. We know that these wildfires have caused just tremendous challenges here in Los Angeles. And so many of us have come together to try to make sure that together we mobilize and we bring our resources together, we collaborate, and we make sure that we can respond for many of those small businesses, and the residents that were affected. We know that this is a tremendous devastation, but nonetheless, we are inspired by these residents that were impacted, these businesses that were impacted, and their resolve to stand firm. I've spoken to so many small business owners who lost not only their businesses, but their homes as well. The Chamber has been fully activated, working with our state and federal partners, our local partners, to make sure that we can bring those immediate resources that are available for relief and recovery. Through much of our advocacy, we've been working with partners across the state to ensure that we have the right funding for relief, recovery, and rebuilding. The Chamber itself launched a small business disaster recovery fund, and we look forward to continue to working with our corporate and philanthropic partners to bring much needed resource. But today is an exciting day to talk about jobs first and the work that has been happening from a bottoms-up approach here across the state of California. It's an economic blueprint. It's about recovery, rebuilding. It's focused on our industries, the hallmark of industries that live here and thrive across the state. I am so excited of what this means for economic development, for promoting equity and high quality and good paying jobs to improve the lives of Californians and of Angelenos, especially those that are seeing the impact of these fires. You'll hear more about what this means to our industries here, the ones we want to strengthen, the ones we want to accelerate, the ones we're going to anchor, and those that we're going to take a bet on them. So thank you all for being here, and thank you, Governor, for your partnership in what you've done here to lay out this blueprint for all of us. We're going to kick off this conversation this morning to talk about Jobs First and what it means to all of us. I am so pleased to welcome the supervisor from the 1st District, Supervisor Hilda Solis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I represent the 1st District, serve as Chair Pro Tem for the County Board of Supervisors, and welcome to the 1st District right here in East LA. And I want to especially applaud and thank the Governor, Governor Newsom, for inviting me to be here today, because today is a very important day, building on our economy and helping to bolster our economy here, especially after the fires. I don't think we have to go over too much of that, but it has been very difficult for Los Angeles County residents in the Eaton and the Palisades firestorms that occurred. We know that the county is working in partnership with our federal government as well as with our governor. And I have to tell you, it's been exciting to see the governor out here almost every day. Can't imagine where he could be, but he has made it a point to be here with us, and to come here today to East Los Angeles says a whole lot about where his passion is. I want to say that, the firestorms ripped so many people apart, took their homes away, took their livelihoods, and even people that didn't have their homes taken, they lost their jobs. And the overflow is very well seen. It's happening throughout LA County. And I can tell you, even in my own districts, when people are telling me that family members lost their homes in Altadena, that now they're moved in with another family. Instead of having 5 people, there are now 10 people in that 2-bedroom unit. You can just imagine what the hardship is, and knowing that you may not have a job because that job is no longer there. And now looking forward to what future? Well, hopefully there will be opportunities, and there will be, that you'll hear about today. Employment opportunities, and really looking at some of the segments where we know we can help revitalize our economy quickly. And I'm so proud that the governor has spent so much time. I want to say back in 2023, he was doing so much to help provide for leadership on the California's Jobs First initiative. And we have been a part of it, and I want to say that LA County has joined hands in hand with him. And I think it is very important for us to reiterate that while we talk about recovery, and this has been going on even before the fires, that we look at those segments and prioritize them. The creative economy, the manufacturing area, the housing, the childcare, infrastructure, healthcare, and many other areas that we know right now people need to look forward to see how we're going to go back and expand these opportunities. The governor, by way of being of great assistance to us, has made available nearly $275 million in funds from the state to help us create hundreds and hundreds of jobs right here. And one, in fact, that I want to talk about is in my own district, the historic General Hospital, the Restorative Care Village. We have had public-private partnerships, but we've also allowed for local hire and for good construction jobs. And I think people need to understand that. It isn't just coming in and saying you're going to do something, but you've actually been doing it for a number of years. We know that the county is a safety net here, so yes, we have to depend on our governor as well as our partners at the federal level. And we know that right now, California needs more jobs, more recovery to prepare for the Olympics and what's to come. And that's just one part of it. I do want to give a shout out to our LA County Department of Economic Opportunity, Director Kelly Lobianco, who has helped to be a partner in the I want to say 500 organizations that the governor's staff have been meeting with to help come about with this strategic plan that is being presented and being showcased today. That our Department of Economic Opportunity is also helping by way of giving out grants, $2,000 grants to county workers. And I'm talking about those workers that were landscapers, nannies, child care workers, actors, stagehands that also need that support. And I want to say that the county is here to be a partner with the governor. Now, very briefly, just in Spanish, soy la supervisora representando el primer distrito en el condado de Los Ángeles. Y quiero dar las gracias al gobernador Newsom por invitarme hoy para su trabajo que está haciendo para mejorar la economía de California. Las últimas semanas han sido difíciles aquí en el condado para muchas familias por los incendios en East Eaton and Palisades. Muchos de los residentes perdieron sus casas, sus negocios y su empleo. Los incendios también resultarán en la pérdida de muchos trabajos aquí. Esto incluye, por ejemplo, actores, jardineros, niñeras y muchas personas otras que también ahorita están buscando trabajo y a dónde vivir. Por eso, el anuncio hoy día del gobernador que incluye nuevos fondos y apoyo para la recuperación económica aquí en Los Ángeles es tan importante. El condado ha apoyado la iniciativa que se llama California Jobs First, que puso el gobernador, y es una exitosa colaboración con los líderes locales de los diferentes pequeños y medianos negocios. Espero a seguir trabajando con el gobernador, con todos que están aquí al lado de mí, que estamos haciendo todo para reparar la economía aquí y garantizar que la recuperación es para todos los angelinos. Ahora quiero presentar el secretario Stuart Knox de la Agencia de Desarrollo Laboral de la Fuerza Laboral de California. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to present to you Secretary Stuart Knox from California's Labor and Workforce Development Agency. Thank you.
You know a little bit about that work, right?
Yeah, I do.
Good afternoon. Stuart Knox, just to talk a little bit about the Jobs First Blueprint today. This has been the first blueprint that the state of California has actually done in economic and workforce development ever in the state of California from a ground-up approach. In addition to partnering with the governor and GoBiz, Dee Dee's team, and Derek. This Jobs First, we have been working in complementary, at the same time, as the governor mentioned earlier today, is the master plan on career education. So this is also a part of the three-legged stool, which I'll leave that to the governor to talk about, in the way that we're looking at how jobs and the economy works together on workforce development. Even before we adopt this new plan, thanks to this governor, we've already made unprecedented dollar amounts just in workforce development alone, over $4 billion under his leadership. Today, we're announcing $92 million in additional funding. That includes $52 million for new apprenticeships in the Apprenticeship Innovation Fund. In addition to that, another $16 million in pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship funding for young people ages 16 to 24. An additional $24 million on what we call the High Road Training Partnerships that will fund 10 projects, many of which are in LA County alone. These awards include $5 million for the Center for Caregiver Advancement here in Los Angeles, which this upskilling program for in-home healthcare providers is already preparing 35,000 home caregivers, including 4,000 which have learned disaster readiness skills alone. This new funding marks another sign and a significant milestone in the governor's goal of hitting the 500,000 apprenticeships and people in earn and learn capacity so that people can actually have a good paying job and get new skills, develop those skills, being at community colleges like we're at here today, and then leading those skills into better paying jobs for the future. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce my partner that I work with so often, Dee Dee Myers.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Secretary Knox. We are two sides of the house, the labor and business, and our collaboration and our partnership has been key to, I think, the progress that we've made on Jobs First. So thank you, Secretary Knox, and thank you to LAEDC and to Stephen Chang, who's been such a great partner in this process, and to Supervisor Solis in the county, and of course, to our great partner from GoBiz, Maria Salinas in the LA Chamber. So just delighted to be here at this pivotal moment as we begin the next phase of Jobs First, moving from research and design and deliberation into actual implementation. So it's really exciting. As you've all heard, it's been a pretty remarkable journey over the last several years, one that builds on California's proud place as the economic engine of California, but also our place as the fifth largest economy on the planet. But we're also going to ensure that we move forward together, and this plan does that every region across our state continues to play a critical role in building an economic future that's even more vibrant than our past. That's what Jobs First is all about, and this is only the beginning. The blueprint outlines actionable strategies for the next 10 years, and it helps regions to execute on the plans and to really turn their visions and their work into reality. That includes modernizing the way we work at GoBiz and the labor agency. We have to accommodate and modernize to be able to make this work. Among other things, we're standing up a new office, the Office of Regional Economic Development Initiatives already, led by Derek Kirk, and none of this would have been possible without Derek's tireless leadership over the last several years. We wouldn't be here without you, Derek, and he and his team will lead this effort going forward. Again, this isn't a plan that's going to go on the shelf. This is a project that's central to what we do at GoBiz with a whole team dedicated to it. So we're also going to spend the next 2 years focused on our statewide key sector pilots. Those are space, defense, and satellites, ag tech and farm equipment, life sciences, and semiconductor and microelectronics. And we're going to prove that this model can be replicated across California across the next decade. All this, of course, is going to require a sustained commitment from state agencies, from the collaboratives, all 13 regions of the state, from our private sector partners, and most importantly, from the communities where these investments will live and these jobs will be created. And as we move forward, I think we're all confident that each of the regions will enable the state to navigate through the challenges ahead, and that together we're going to get the job done. So with that, I would like to introduce the man whose commitment to economic inclusive growth, to ensuring that communities across our state have a voice in their own future, get to be the architects of their own future, who's funded and empowered this effort from the beginning, and it's been its champion over the last 3 years, Governor Gavin Newsom. And Governor, I'm proud to hand off to you the state economic blueprint.
All right, we have to do our
Yeah, there we go. So there it is. This is just the icing on top of the 13 regional plans. So thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Dee Dee. We've been doing that in all the regions that we've been visiting, and I'm grateful. And I'll brag on you a little bit more. On behalf of the state of California, I'm grateful for all the hard work that's been put into this effort. This was an effort that was initiated 3 years ago. It was an effort that was launched, unprecedented effort that was launched with resources behind it. We said the state vision fundamentally has to be realized at the local level. If we were going to put out an economic development plan, it had to be bottom up, not top down. It had to be informed by unique diversity of each region in the state of California. I said this on stage. Some of you were just there a moment ago. There is no state economy. It's really the intersection of many diverse economies in different regions all throughout a state that's as large as 21 state populations combined. And so the framework we advanced was novel. We have not, in the history of this state, advanced a detailed, comprehensive strategy for economic and workforce development that has been framed region by region. 13 regions were funded in this effort. $5 million grants were provided over a multi-year period. They put out plans, including the one I just received here from Los Angeles. All of those plans, all 13 now, have been rolled up into this summary, which is the state vision, which broke down 10 specific economic sectors that overlay and represent the diversity within the entire state of California. And what we're now advancing is additional resources to invest in making real what has been promoted here in these plans. To Dee Dee's point, these are not plans that are about press releases. They're not plans that just simply collect dust. And to back that up, I want to go back a little bit and make this point. Not only did we fund the plans with $5 million each, we also provided $39 million in grants for pilot programs, things that stood out in that planning process that were ready to go, shovel ready, that were catalytic, that could leverage state, federal, and philanthropic dollars. And we launched those programs. So successful were those pilots that the regions came back and said, wait, there's more that needs to be resourced. So we decided to allocate $14 million, additional dollars, to each region in the state. Folks up in Shasta received $14 million, not just the folks here in Los Angeles. Again, unprecedented support backing up the work that was being done at the local level. $287 million now has been invested in this effort so far. $140 million of additional resources that we just announced on stage today, ready to go grants that were ready to get out the door to continue the progress and promotion of regional economic and workforce development. Two brief additional points. This was not done in isolation. This was done in a collaborative spirit, not just among the regions, but among stakeholders, but also with two very intentional strategies that were also going along parallel tracks. And that was the creation of the state's first master plan for career education. This was a multi-year process looking at the issues of not just degree attainment, but looking at the issues around credentialing, looking at the issues around veterans that have received all this basic training, but then have to come to a community college without the benefit of actually getting credit for all that basic training that they've already received. Already through the partnerships that we've established at community colleges, already through the partnerships we've advanced through the career plan, we are waiving some of those basic degree requirements and actually using the experience that people have earned as credentials for advancing their higher education attainment and degrees. One of many things that has occurred through this career master plan effort. By the way, including eliminating thousands and thousands of required positions, or at least access to positions in state government that required a college degree, no longer requiring a college degree, just simply a GED or just basic experience. So all of this was done at the same time we were advancing this Jobs First agenda, including a K through 16 collaborative, which goes to the spirit of workforce development, aligning universities to these regions and aligning the unique economic needs as it relates to what that workforce requirements look like, what the industries of the future will be requiring, and making sure our K through 16 partners were aligning in that collaborative. So that's the three-legged stool that Stuart was referencing, and it's just a lot of hard work and a lot of pride that's gone into this, and it's nice to be able to hear today to promote the success of this effort so far. That said, let me back up. I'm not naive about the economic challenges, particularly here in Southern California, and that's why it was appropriate today we announced the statewide economic blueprint here in Southern California. I'm not naive about the imperative of moving to remove debris, concurrently to get people to feel optimism again, getting permits, getting people starting to rebuild their community, but we also need to be rebuilding confidence in the economy here in Los Angeles and the broader region, particularly as we build up to the Olympics, build up to other large-scale events. And so this blueprint lays out the strategy, again, not state down, but bottom up, lays the parameter of the engagement and partnerships throughout the region, and is supported by real resources that are coming from the state of California to get moving now and not just promote a promise that we can't ultimately realize. One of the things that I'm proud of as it relates to the progress, as it relates to rebuilding specifically, is yesterday we formally announced, technically EPA today announced, I want to thank Lee Zeldin, I want to thank the administration, President Trump. They put over 1,500 boots on the ground, almost 1,600 at peak, to get phase one debris removal complete within record time. There's simply not been a scale of devastation where hazardous waste debris removal was removed at a record pace. Full disclosure, there are complex properties that remain, so not 100% of that was complete, but the primary function of EPA has been completed as of yesterday. And now the Army Corps is substantially responsible for those complex properties and all the other additional properties. We remain vigilant in terms of having that same mindset as it relates to phase one to be advanced in phase two. The goal is simple: record time to finish the job with phase two debris removal. I was in Altadena a week ago. Some of you were there. You met someone who was getting her property debris removed, phase two, and she had her architect on site. And we're following her requests and applications for permitting, and we want to see her under construction in the very, very near future. Again, none of us naive about the logistics of this. That was exampled in the Board of Supervisors hearing yesterday, and obviously a lot of that work continues. But one of the things, and it's a long-winded way of just of planting this seed, we advanced an initiative a week ago that I just want to highlight briefly called engaged.ca.gov, engaged.ca.gov. And it's a way of engaging the community so that the community, not dissimilar to the Jobs First blueprint, can design their future and design their recovery and can feel fully participatory in that process. It's not a substitute for more traditional one-on-one or town halls, but a lot of folks, they don't feel comfortable going to the front of the line in a town hall. Sometimes town halls are taken over by similar points of view and people that tend to populate the conversation. And there's folks on the periphery that don't necessarily get a chance to talk about their future and know that their voice is being heard. So engaged.ca.gov is that platform. We work with Carnegie. We worked with the Berggruen Institute, Stanford, and Harvard, even an international partner out of Taiwan. This is a platform unlike any other that has been advanced in this state. Already 3,000+ people from the community, Altadena, the Palisades area, has already signed up, but there are thousands more that haven't. And I really encourage you to go to that platform. It's, again, not the exclusive platform, but it's a platform for participation where one individual can have 99 people say one thing, one person says the opposite. That point of view is equivalent in terms of populating points of view for conversation, meaning your voice will be heard. And our job is to make sure there's a feedback loop and that the city, the county, and the state are responsive to that community dialogue that's part of this platform. Again, just providing that for further consideration. We announced it a few days ago, and I just want to continue to promote it as we promote this recovery, again, from a community-led perspective, as we promote the state's economic growth from a community-led perspective. Bottom up, not top down, not selling a vision, and recognizing that a state vision, a federal vision, is realized locally. And localism, as we say, is determinative and will be determinative in terms of the recovery here in Los Angeles from the devastation of the wildfires as well. Final point, Derek is a rock star. I said that because he is. Rare, when I hear some Doge type people saying, government doesn't have the best and the brightest, one of the best and the brightest. And I don't say that to get this guy hired away by some private corporation. But this is next level talent right there. Just as Dee Dee Myers is, just as Stuart Knox is. I'm really proud of these guys. And they're doing this not to make a lot of money. They're doing this because they care about public service. They care about the public good, the common good. And so we're blessed in this state to have government workers that give a damn and are here, not because they have to be, but because they want to be, because they believe in this state and they believe in this region and they believe in this recovery. With that, we're here to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
John Bigliotti with CBS News. It took the mayor's office nearly 7 hours to declare a local emergency. By that time, much of the Palisades was already on fire. You have said that during that time you were struggling to get straight answers from local leaders. What was the mayor telling you during this time period, and could swifter action have prevented so much loss?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the details of that. In fact,
You're the one that brought it up, though, on a podcast. That's why I asked you.
yeah, specifically for this reason, that we have hired an independent group to look at the local, the regional, state, and federal response across the spectrum in an independent way. A group similar to the group that was hired to do the after action report for the state of Hawaii. And we're going to let that report objectively speak for itself as it relates to, you say 7 hours or 2 minutes or 5 minutes, get into all the weeds and details as it relates to the response. And as we made clear when we announced the initiation of that investigation, that we're going to make it public as soon as it is received.
But in the meantime, you're calling for a swift rebuild. I've heard a lot talk about the economy, the Olympics, money, but a lot of people, homeowners, are wondering what is being done about safety. You have lifted critical fire code regulations, environmental regulations for a swift rebuild. What is now being done for safety as this investigation?
Well, we're the highest building safety standards in the United States of America, the highest requirements for safety in the United States of America, fire safety for building materials and designs in the United States. We're not waiving that. We're waiving CEQA for like-minded or similarly sized rebuild. We're waiving Coastal Act along those same lines. So it's very limited in scope, and it's focused with a high level of energy and commitment to the issue of rebuilding smarter, rebuilding with resiliency and climate and science in mind, rebuilding with redundancy, rebuilding with a much more aggressive posture to address the inevitability that there are going to be large-scale fires in and around the region into the future, as has been the case for decades in the past. And so all of those things are foundational and are not just being promoted, but are essential and are required in terms of the approach the state is taking in the rebuild. And I'll just reinforce that by also pointing you to our recent announcement as it relates to new maps that we put out in the state of California beyond just the area impacted by the Eaton Palisades fire that will require even additional life safety considerations, additional design considerations, additional requirements for vegetation, additional setback requirements and design build considerations. So the state has been very aggressive in that posture and will continue to be.
In terms of what we're talking about here today,
We'll get to the questions. We're good. Yeah.
Governor, in terms of what we're talking about here today, one In terms of there's a lot of numbers and a lot of stuff being talked about in terms, but real concisely, can you explain what exactly this blueprint is doing for the average person in terms of tangible results? And then the off-topic question, we hear you have a new podcast coming. Can you tell us about that?
Well, this is the first time I've supported your off-topic inquiry.
I guess you haven't, and for people that might say that's a bit of a distraction from your day job.
No, it's essential for my day job. It's an opportunity to communicate people, respecting all of you directly. The world's changed. We need to change with it in terms of how we communicate and continue additional touch points, have two-way conversations, which are part of that podcast as well, in terms of having people be able to gauge me directly. And I want to gauge people that often I engage with in private and make public those conversations. And I think that's what inspired this. I had some interesting conversations with people I deeply disagree with, and we found a lot of common ground. And I just thought, I said to someone, one of those conversations, I said, wish this was been recorded, because I think it would distill a sense of well-being people, that, we don't hate each other. While we have different points of view, you actually expressed some interesting insight, I said, that I didn't fully appreciate, and I hope I offered the same. And so that was the idea for the website. Well, one of them will be on shortly, and there'll be a reason for the guests that will be on, because it sort of reflects some of those conversations. And so I just think that's important. And I think that was reflected in the election as well. Everything's changed. Your business is changing radically and generationally. I mean, it's just fun. Everything has changed. So it would be as dumb as we want to be if we continue down the old status quo and try to pave over the old cow path. We've got to do things differently and keep iterating. And I'll just end on that and get to your first point, your first question. I've been doing this type of thing for years and years. I did a show with Al Gore where Elon Musk and I were driving in to the studio together in this thing called a Model S. I think it was one of the first times it was ever exposed on a TV show, his new Tesla, with Elon trying to figure out how to use the controls. Did the same thing with Sergey Brin, and he had those Google glasses, which became sort of the origin story for a lot of the change you're seeing, Oculus and others. Marissa Mayer, before she went to Yahoo. So I've been sort of in that space of trying to be a little iterative. That's what Engaged California is all about, a different platform. Wrote a book years ago, Citizenville, around platform thinking, how to make the town square digital. This is a manifestation of that. And so I think it's consistent with all that. That said, you asked the first question. Now I've forgotten it.
About just making this, to that point, concise and where people can...
Oh, yeah, what the hell are we doing here? Yeah. Well, I mean, it reflects the voices of 10,000 people. 10,000 people are responsible for this plan. It's unprecedented effort to reach out to people in every part of this state, from the Redwood Coast down to the border, quite literally where we visited both, and to represent their desires, their aspirations, and to acknowledge their fears as it relates to displacement, the macroeconomic changes, and what's happening in the global economy, the impacts of tariffs, the impacts of policies in the past and free trade, and how it's hollowed out many communities, the anxiety of people that can't access institutions of higher learning but still want a future and a career, people that don't want to be left behind. That's what this plan represents, and it's the first blueprint of its kind this state has ever advanced.
Governor, any political leader, their mettle is tested by crisis. You were mayor for 8 years.
7.
7.
Yeah. Lieutenant governor got in the way, but
speak to the importance of having credibility with the electorate, with the community in which you serve. And as mayor of San Francisco, in a time of crisis, how debilitating would it have been to have fired your fire?
I appreciate the frame of your question. I appreciate the desire for a response. I'm not going to get in personnel decisions. I've learned that the hard way as it relates to second-guessing anyone's personnel decisions. That's not for me to judge. I don't have the facts to understand that interaction. I don't understand to engage in that conversation as a pundit. It would be inappropriate for me. I'll leave that to local government. As it relates to anyone's approach to addressing the issue of anxiety and fear, as it relates to issues of disaster recovery, we're all practitioners. We're all doing the best we can under very difficult and challenging circumstances. And And I would extend the same humility and grace as it relates to that as well. That I'm not here to judge someone else in that respect. One thing I can say, because this I have direct knowledge of, is that we've had a really good working relationship with the city and the county, and that relationship continues, and it's foundational, it's essential. It is foundational and essential if we're going to achieve the goal of rebuilding this community, and to do it in a safe way, not just a fast way. It's essential. And so my posture is to maintain partnership, and that includes with the President of the United States. And that's why I went and visited him in the Oval Office and spent 90 minutes with the President. That's why I've been on the phone with the President. That's why I have no problem calling balls and strikes and thanking Lee Zeldin and thanking President Trump for phase 1 of the debris removal as he cuts the U.S. Forest Service, as he had his representatives out here attacking some state projects like the high-speed rail. We can agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, it's essential in this disaster framework and recovery that we all work together.
One more question, a follow-up to that. It was, I believe it was Churchill said, never let a good crisis go to waste. Do you see what happened in Altadena and the Palisades as an opportunity to jolt the regulatory framework in building and housing development statewide in a way that will transform things? You mentioned this at the very end of your talk on stage.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to move local governments. Is this the opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it, once the mind is stretched, it should never go back to its original form. And we've proven in this framework we can move. Decades and decades of inaction in certain areas, we're advancing in real time. In terms of permitting, in terms of coordination between the cities and counties, many different local agencies working collaboratively with state agencies. So I am all in, fully committed to extend this emergency mindset to the pre-existing emergency in the state of California. That is a big part of any economic vision, and that is addressing the original sin in this state, and that's the imbalance, the supply-demand imbalance as it relates to housing construction in California, and addressing that issue of affordability head-on, which is foundational. The issue of homelessness, housing, the issue of our competitiveness, our tax base, all of it reflected in the inability of the state of California to get out of its own way. We are now getting out of our own way as it relates to this recovery and this mindset. It must be maintained moving forward. That's my goal.
Excuse me. Faith in the mayor's leadership. So we were told that people in your office were moved by the Menendez brothers starting a hospice program in prison. So I wondered, they talked about it on a Two Angry Men podcast. I wondered if you had a chance to listen to it. Also, if you had any thoughts on it. That's some pretty heavy, powerful stuff. Yeah,
I haven't had any direct conversations with those members of my staff that may or may not have been moved by Menendez's commitment in that space. Look, I will say we just made an announcement on the This is Gavin Newsom podcast that we are moving forward with an investigation, a risk assessment investigation that I've directed to the Board of Parole Hearings. And my hope is to get that report and that hearing done in a matter of weeks. My goal is within 90 days. And then take advantage of that insight from those that are experts in public safety risk, forensic psychologists that will participate in that review and assessment to understand their in custody along the lines of what you just referenced, their in custody conduct, what they've done since the offense as it relates to rehabilitation and treatment programs, whether they've contributed to their own rehabilitation. All of that will be part of this investigation and review, and we will be the beneficiary of that within 90 days so that we can make a determination as to whether or not to move forward with the clemency request that came from Menendez's attorney.
Do you have faith in the mayor's leadership, Governor? Do you have faith in the mayor's leadership?
Touching on what you're just talking about the cuts to the U.S. Forest Service that you're seeing, a lot of the firings that are happening in Doge. You talked about this really collaborative relationship that you've had with President Trump and the federal government. You've got this $40 billion disaster aid request in. Can you just bring us more into what that conversation has been about things like the cuts that we're seeing to staff and how that will affect future wildfires?
I think, I've said this before, and it's only been reinforced in the last couple weeks. Fire and fury signifying what? Something or nothing. If it's nothing, move on. If it's something, we'll respond to it. And so there's a lot to respond to right now. Things that were rejected, things that are stuck, things that no longer are rejected, things that are now unstuck. So we'll wait to see where the dust settles on all of this. But when there's a fundamental betrayal of a commitment, a program, then we'll be very clear in terms of our response. We have been, and we have that from a litigation posture, obviously, and the funding that we provided in that space. But as it relates to this space, along the lines you're suggesting of a $39 billion request of the federal government, Congress, and the president, we're maintaining a level of honest engagement. Open hand, as I've said, not a closed fist. That includes, by the way, Republican leaders in Congress, which are critical in this respect. And I want to thank, I don't want to call their names out because you may chase them, but there's a number of Republican representatives of the state of California that have been spectacular, that have had honest dialogues, that are stress testing our requests, that have requested additional information in good faith. And that's the spirit that I hope we can maintain as it relates to ultimately being successful with this supplemental request. But I imagine there's going to be a lot more, turbulence, including through March 14th or 15th, as it relates to potential government shutdown, the debt ceiling question, the impacts. What does it really mean? Was that resolution signifying something or nothing yesterday? It seems a little something, a little nothing. What is $880 million? Is that real Medicaid cuts or Medi-Cal cuts as it relates to California or not? Again, once we make those determinations, then I could respond a little bit more strategically to your question.
Last question for you. Quarterly auction revenues dropped again today at the cap and trade auction. Do you feel a sense of urgency around extending the cap and trade authorization this year? And do you think CARB should start the process of amendments before the legislature acts or vice versa?
Yeah, we were clear in January, in the January budget proposal, that I'm open to a conversation as it relates to cap and trade extension. Do I feel it's absolutely necessary this year? My current position is it's not absolutely necessary. So if the conditions present themselves where we can have a favorable dialogue between all of the parties, including the private sector, public sector, not just three-letter agencies like CARB or four-letter agencies and the legislature, then we will pursue it. We've kept an open mind and an open dialogue with legislative leaders. May's question actually reflects an important consideration as well. What may or may not occur as it relates to a new budget? What impacts will that have on IRA grants? Impacts on the infrastructure bill? Impacts on already well-established waivers in the state of California? How does that impact the cap and trade? Their efforts on high-speed rail. All of those things need to be considered. So I think we're at a point of certainty around the uncertainty. And as a consequence of that, we have to be nimble in this conversation.
Is it legal for Trump and friends in Congress to invoke the Congressional Review Act to overturn California's rules? The act is designed for national regulation.
Well, I have to, specific to what?
Pollution standards, vehicle pollution.
Oh, well, now you're going to, that should have been the prior question. I have strong opinions about this, well-established positions about this, but not, let me just establish the obvious. It does not surprise me, their current stance, because it's a stance that's well-established, not just by the Trump administration 1.0, but by previous Republican administrations that have been trying to vandalize California's waiver and pollution standards for decades, going back to George W. Bush, many others that have been at this. And I reflect, I think Ronald Reagan is a new, I think Reagan's portrait is above President Trump. And I remind everyone it was Ronald Reagan that established those standards as governor in 1967. I'll leave it at that.
Governor Newsom, on the huge podcast, not about why you're doing the podcast.
See, well,
You've been a huge critic of
what have I been critical about? Oh, have I?
The
Yeah.
back and forth on X, the nastiness of the times in which we live. How
Yeah.
could your new podcast not be more of that?
Well, it might be. I don't want it to be. My intention is the opposite, and that's how it was promoted. At least that's what I said. I didn't read how it was promoted, but I should, because my intent was to communicate a totally different paradigm, and that is to find common ground and to also try to mine other people's points of view without assigning any, I don't know, we all want to be, I've said this a million times, we all want to be loved, we all need to love. We all want to be protected, connected, and respected, part of something bigger than ourselves. And so people have different points of view about how to achieve all that. And so I'd love to learn more about what's the motivation. Why is the issue of, fill in the blank, fill in a controversial issue. Why is that so important to you? More important than the 6 or 7 things that you don't seem to talk about as much. And vice versa. It's a chance to dialogue with me, perhaps why we have different points of view in that respect. So that's the approach. So it's intended to do the exact opposite, but I can't promise that.